Hey, it's Francis Lamb, host of The Splendid Table. Every week on our show, we talk about food and cooking and the meanings of food and cooking. We talk with the most interesting people in food about their techniques, their culture, and everything in between. Whether it's about how fried chicken took over the world or how Instagram changes the way people are actually eating. It's a food show where everyone is welcome. Come join us. You can listen to The Splendid Table wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
Gather your friends and family at the second annual Catskill Cuisine Festival, presented by the Sullivan Catskills Visitors Association, Bethel Woods Center for the Arts, and Resorts World Catskills. Mark your calendars for a flavor-packed weekend from May 10th to May 12th. Experience the fusion of phenomenal food and electrifying entertainment. Rub shoulders with your favorite Food Network personalities, including Andrew Zimmern, Michael Simon, Scott Conant, Marcus Samuelson, Jeffrey Zakarian, Anne Burrell, Melba Wilson, and distinguished international chefs by LaBelle Farms. Kick off the festivities with Friday's star-studded golf tournament and evening reception. Saturday heats up with free tastings, thrilling live demos, music, and family activities, culminating with a gourmet dinner hosted by celebrity chefs. And on Sunday, celebrate Mother's Day with a special celebrity-curated brunch. Tickets for this celebration are selling like hotcakes. Visit catskill-cuisine.com to grab your pass for this unforgettable weekend in the picturesque Catskills. See you there!
Culture and Flavor is a podcast about food and culture centered in Black and Indigenous foodways, hosted by myself, Zella Palmer, right here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Each episode features high vibrational conversations with cultural bearers, chefs, farmers, scholars, barbecue pit masters, and more. Where there is flavor, there is history. Join me on Culture and Flavor and all of my guests as we share stories that will have you praise dancing, cooking, conjuring, and inspiring your culinary journey. Welcome, y'all, to another episode of Culture and Flavor with your host, Zella Palmer. I am super duper excited to have Pachi Durães, dear friend, colleague, warrior woman, just amazing food scholar in Brazil, in São Paulo, Brazil. Pachi is a food cultural researcher with a focus on Afro-diasporic heritage and Brazilian cuisine. She has developed expertise in understanding how food is integral to the cultural identity of a people, and her passion lies in connecting Brazil's cultural and ethnic diversity to its cuisine, expanding the understanding of the intersection between food and identity. I met Pachi in 2023 at the Churrascada Barbecue Festival in São Paulo, Brazil, where we were invited to co-curate with another scholar and activist in Ghana, Amy, to co-curate a festival, the barbecue festival in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I was just amazed and just in awe of all the work that she's doing in Brazil with Afro-Brazilians in the culinary world. And just recently, literally last week, I invited her to come to Dillard, where she was a Mellon Fellow. And that was her first time in the U.S. And that was her first time in New Orleans. And we had a blast. And she did such an incredible job working with our students and teaching them about Afro-Brazilian culture and cuisine that I had to invite her on Culture and Flavor so we can just share the love, share the Brazilian love with the world, and just share Pachi Durães with the world because she is a goddess, and so I just wanted to say, boa tarde.
Oh my God, what do I say? You said it all. I am red. Not that red, but I am red. Hi, Zella. Thank you so much for inviting me for all of those magical experiences at NOLA and for being here with you at the podcast. Thank you so much, my dear.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have y'all. And so now the world gets to hear who is Paty Duras and what your journey was in Brazil and where you are now. So let's start from the beginning. How did you end up in food in Brazil? And what does your work
Yeah.
entail?
Yes, it's quite a journey. It's been about 23 years that I'm thinking about food and race and identity in Brazil. I am passionate about exploring all those intersections of food, culture, social justice, empowerment at the communities, and especially the Black and also indigenous communities. My journey began with a deep curiosity about the culinary traditions and all the heritage of marginalized people and groups in Brazil, in the world, in Africa, in USA. And this curiosity led me to go into topics, very deep topics, such as food sovereignty, traditional knowledge preservation, and also the impact of the historical injustices on our food systems here, there, everywhere. So my travels and experiences, including the visits to the Maroon communities that you know, and all the engagements with Afro-Brazilian culture, have profoundly shaped my perspective. I see resilience, creativity, I see strength on these communities while they are preserving their traditions and navigating such a sea of social economic challenges. So I've been collaborating on projects on educational initiatives and advocacy efforts to contribute to positive change, to social transformation, and to try to promote a deeper understanding of these interconnected interconnections between food and all of this. So I am driven by a passion for learning, for sharing with people all this meaningful engagement with diverse communities around the world since I was a little girl, because now I know that I am this researcher since I was a little girl, living at my grandmother's house, going to shop food with her. She always hobbied me to know the difference between all the vegetables and fruits and all the meat cuts. I was a kid and a teenager that had to know what food was, what the food of my family was, and the difference between all of it, and mainly the importance of foods in our community.
You mentioned the Maroon communities, and I'm thinking
Yes.
about, just for those who, sorry, our listeners, just Maroons were runaway enslaved people who ran to the swamps, the jungle, the forest, depending on where they were in the world. And in Brazil today, I think you told me there's about 3,000 to 4,000 Maroon members that are still, continuing with the traditions of those who were in bondage. And I would love to hear more about your work with the Quilombo communities, as you all call them.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely right. We still have more than 3,000 quilombos, Maroons lands in Brazil, and they are still fighting to have the property of that land, because those lands are on good places, good places to grow food, good places to hide themselves from the colonizer, from the landlords that they were running away from. So politicians and big companies are against them till now, till today, trying to take out from them the right of being there, the property of that place. So I've been going to those places, doing visits, mainly just to be there and recognize myself as part of that story, part of that land, tasting their food, seeing the way they preserve the culinary traditions. I love to say that those places have their terroir, as the French people say, that their wines have the French terroir. I like to say that Maroon's food and fresh food tastes their terroir. So I've been centering those community voices, inspired by many pedagogies and studies and teachers and philosophers. I've been trying to engage those communities and engage us that are not there by knowing about them, by knowing that the richness that they have there. So I've been conducting interviews, doing focus groups, or participating on workshops to document their food practices, their knowledge, their experiences, and also my experiences being on those places. And I'm using my voice, asking people to respect their cultural heritage, and using my voice to emphasize this importance, and for us Black peoples to preserve those traditions and those heritages on our everyday lives. It's a kind of empowerment through education, I've been trying to develop educational materials and being on workshops based on my findings and insights of it. I like to say that it's action and advocacy about our history, because we are descendants of those people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned pedagogy. One of my favorite books of all time is, and we talked about this when you were in New Orleans and had lengthy conversations about it, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yes.
Just how we show up in communities that, education is oftentimes forced down their throat, or is supposed to be rote memorization. And Paulo Freire just left such a blueprint. And I think every educator should read that book and rethink even how we, in this global technological age, how we look at education. And so I would love for you to talk a little bit more about your ideas about the pedagogy of the oppressed and how it relates to food in Black and Indigenous communities in Brazil.
Yes, I'm always thinking about what if Freire was still alive, if he was with us now, fighting and thinking about food. I think that mainly it's about things that we can apply on understanding food issues in marginalized communities. And as I say, Black and Indigenous populations in Brazil. When we think about marginalized communities, we are thinking about Black and Indigenous people. So in these communities, food access, quality of food, and cultural relevance are always on these broader social and economic inequalities. I think his concept of conscientization or critical consciousness is relevant till today, because he was trying to raise awareness about the structural barriers that limit access to good food on those places. And also the relevance, the cultural relevance of food, because he was talking about identity and about self-determination, seeing ourselves as this relevance, as this importance. So in the context of food, I think it means by recognizing and valuing those traditional practices and the knowledge about our communities, because it involves challenging dominant narratives that marginalize these food traditions on our communities. And I think it's all about food sovereignty as well. Don't you think?
Absolutely. It's definitely about food sovereignty. And, and when you think about marginalized communities for, centuries, spirituality, African spirituality was looked at as, primitive and was looked down upon. Even, when we talk about the Orishas, Ifa, and, one of the things that really stood out to me is visiting Bahia and seeing all of these statues of the Orishas, large statues. Now, I grew up in Chicago and all I saw were Greek gods everywhere. If you go near Museum of Science and Industry, there's all these Greek gods everywhere you go in the US, And so to see this large statue of an African god and a little small river was just like, whoa. And then also to see chefs and restaurants unapologetically proud of their heritage. And I know it took a long time to get to that point, but even at Churrascada, I was taken aback that, there were chefs there whose booth were dedicated to their Orisha, whether it was, Elegua or Ogun, and that was so revolutionary to me, because I know Nigerian chefs or other, folks who would be afraid to do something like that because they might lose customers or they'll be labeled as, anti-Christian or Muslim or being demonic or whatever, colonized terminology that has been used for centuries on Black folks is, it was interesting. So I would love to talk about just your thoughts about candomblé and Brazil and how it relates to food and the preservation of culture in Brazil. And is Brazil the leader in this? Because when you consider that most people who were enslaved were actually in Brazil, I always tell my students that, it wasn't United States, it was Brazil.
Yes, we also have this fear. I can understand those chefs in Nigeria or in USA because we all have been colonized. Our saints have been put aside. We had to be baptized. Our African names had to be changed by European names. That place that you saw in Bahia is called Dique do Tororó. It's like a lake. And yes, we have the Orishas there. I can't assume that everybody in Bahia love those art pieces because they are art pieces made from an amazing artist. And if you walk on Salvador, up and down, you will see many images of the Orishas. You will see the references because we have more than 2,000 houses of saints, the candomblé houses in Salvador. So the power of candomblé in Bahia holds profound cultural and spiritual significance. And regarding to food and candomblé, it's not just the sustenance of it. It's a way of preserving those traditions, expressing our love from ourselves and from our orishas, and also fostering community bonds. In candomblé, food plays a central role in rituals and all the ceremonies. There's nothing happening on a house of candomblé without food. Nothing happens, nothing occurs in any city of Brazil. We have this power in food connecting us with all those saints, all those powers of the natures, and symbolizing the offerings. We have, for example, Oxalá, which is a Orisha that dresses himself with white, and he loves to eat white cornmeal porridge. Yemaya, for example, she loves to dress herself as with blue because she lives in the sea, and we call her the big mother, the mother of all of us, and she eats seafood dishes. So when we know what those orishas love, we offer those foods to them to strengthen our connections with our ancestors, because it's all about the divine, all about our ancestors, all about the journey, the big journey. And while the act of preparing and sharing those meals, it is when becomes the sacred practice. It is when we are embodying the interconnection of spirituality, culture, and the nourishment in Brazilian life. It's so beautiful. I love it so much. I wish you could have it in USA the same way we have it in Brazil, because it gives us some kind of strength that we don't see it in other traditions, in other religions,
I think, and just thinking about the candomblé, whether it's candomblé in Brazil or Yoruba Lukumi in Cuba or Isheshe in Nigeria, this also, holding on to ancestral religions and spirituality is also food preservation, because the dishes that they make, have been carried on for centuries. When I think about acarajé, and all of these dishes that we love, they're all were foods that one time the Orishas loved, And so it's so spiritual, and the food and the connection between that. So I want to talk to you just about when you came to the US, what were some of your observations or just your thoughts connecting it to Brazil, or the disconnect from Brazil? And what would you like some of our listeners to know about Afro-Brazil? Because one thing that stood out that you said to me, that a lot of times Afro-Brazilians are not invited to come abroad and speak for their, communities, or even some of the pushback and the negativity that you receive can be challenging.
Visiting New Orleans as a Black woman for the first time has been a deeply impactful experience to me, because it was an experience and an opportunity that we don't have many times in our lives. So I'm so thankful to you about it, and thankful of this opportunity of sharing a little of what I've been doing here. And it was amazing to talk to them about Brazil and seeing on them the curiosity about some regular, ordinary things of our lives, like how much time a mango takes to be picked up from a tree. We don't think about it because for us, the mangoes are everywhere. We have avocado trees, mango trees, guava trees at the streets because we are a tropical country and we have these remaining trees from the tropical forest in our streets and houses. So I don't see too much differences between us. I see a lot of similarities as a community. Of course, we have the cultural differences, and I've been struck by the vibrant tapestry of the city. The history rooted in African heritage to the lively music, the art, and all the culinary scenes that celebrate New Orleans' diversity. But the resilience and the creativity of Black people are the same. The Black New Orleanians and the Black Brazilians, the jazz and the samba, the blues and the bossa nova, the Creole and the Cajun cuisine that speaks to centuries of this fusion and innovation has so much in common to Brazilian food culture. And it was amazing to see, to feel, and to discover. It was also a journey of self-discovery to me, of a new connection and many reflections that even with the distance, we are family, we are community. When we look at each other's eyes, I see you, you see me. I saw the girls helping me at the kitchen at the university, and I was seeing my daughters. I was seeing my friends, my relatives, the barriers of the language, they have been thrown away by this similarity, by this feeling of union and community.
And, one of the things that's, for me, just watching you and talking to you, and for listeners who are listening, when she came here, I was really hard to find fresh juice,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we went to a restaurant and someone gave us supposedly what was fresh juice, but it has so much sugar in it,
Yes.
and I knew it wasn't fresh. And, I also remember when Bati made a couple of dishes for students and she didn't throw the ends away of the scallion or any part of the vegetable. She said, "Why would I throw that away?" She said, it's still food.
Yes,
like, absolutely.
I think I will be no as the woman that doesn't throw away nothing.
And I loved it. And every part of what, and I would love for you to talk about those dishes and just the importance of why you chose those dishes to prepare. Because Brazil has so many, dishes that go way back and are part of what you said, the creolization of Brazil. And then a lot of people brought their own culinary legacy and made this one pot, and the mini pots, I should say. So I wanted to, to talk about those dishes and just a little bit about the history behind them.
Yes, I was thinking with myself about what dishes could represent Brazil, could minimal represent Brazilian food culture and Afro-diasporic food culture in Brazil, this heritage. So I decided to go inside Brazil, the interior and the coast. to represent the coast, we cooked a fish stew, a moqueca. And trying to cook the fish stew, we faced the challenge in New Orleans of getting fresh food. And when we face this challenge, we are being attacked by political tools to kill us. That's the resume of it. Because remember we spoke a little about because it's a political way of killing Black people through food, through limiting the access to fresh food, or giving us a lot of ultra-processed and ultra-industrialized food. And when we think about those ultra foods, we are facing huge quantities of sugar, salt, and bad fats. Because, we have good fats. The fat is not the evil, but the bad fats are. So moqueca could represent the coast and the fact that we still have access to fresh food. We still can buy fish from the fishermen, while in USA, at the coast, you are buying fish, frozen fish from other countries, from China, right? And it is so cruel. It is so cruel because it's not taking care of the fishermen. It's not taking care of the biodiversity of the sea, and also not taking care of our bodies, our minds, our economic future. So it's only a moqueca, but it speaks a lot of politics, economics, and anthropology, social things, right?
Absolutely. And y'all should have seen her because we went to a local grocery store here, Latino grocery store, and we were trying to find coconuts, because she wanted to use fresh coconut milk. And in Brazil, in other parts of Caribbean or, Latin America or South America, you can buy, easily in a bag, you can buy coconut. And of course, that is part of, the cultural region. But in the States, coconut milk is sold in the can, right? And you can tell the difference in a moqueca when you have it in the States as compared if you had it in Brazil, because if the chef, made sure that they freshly pressed that coconut milk. And here she was, trying to, talk to one of the grocery store workers. No, please cut my coconut. And he's just like struggling with it. And he said, well, why don't you just get the coconut in the can? And she's like, no, I don't want coconut in the can.
Yes, but as a Latino, he understood and he did.
Yes, he did. He did. He did.
Was quite a nice guy.
Yes, he was. And the moqueca was divine, I must say. And it was like watching a symphony. It was like watching the way that she was pouring the broth in, the milk, and going back and forth. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And we enjoyed it. It was all fresh.
The fish was tasting like a fish, not like not water. Because when we eat frozen fish and frozen vegetables, we are eating water. All the nutritional facts are gone. So the second dish we prepared were feijão tropeiro, which was red kidney beans, right? Was it the name? Red kidney beans. Well cooked with onions, garlic, a sausage, smoked sausage, and also many cassava flour that I brought from Brazil, because you don't have it in USA. And it's a shame, because cassava flour is so natural, so rich of everything.
We have it in major cities. We just don't have it in New Orleans, where there's, they call it, and gari is, definitely sold in African grocery stores, African and Caribbean stores in like New York, Chicago, Houston, places like that. But in New Orleans, because we even recently, the controversy of the week is that Burna Boy, canceled his concert, and so many people were heartbroken, but it's still not predominantly, African centered. It is an African centered town, but it's still the Afro beats hasn't hit New Orleans like a place like Houston or Chicago or New York.
Yes, I see. So the feijão tropeiro was a dish for us to think and talk about that food that keeps on, that walks with that man that goes inside the forests, that goes opening ways inside the forest, inside the jungle, because it won't be not edible after 3 days. So it's an Afro-indigenous food, because it mixes the beans, and the beans were brought to Brazil by the enslaved people, mixing with the cassava flour that is being part of the indigenous culture. They eat cassava every day. We call cassava the queen of Brazil, because it grows everywhere. We have many recipes with it, and mixing a vegetable like the beans, some smoked or dried meat that will last for days with the cassava flour brings this well-balanced meal that helps those men and women on their walkings into the country, And when we were talking about it, I used the opportunity to talk about not wasting food, because the shells, the roots, the seeds, they are all edible. They are all food, and they are all much, much, much better than something on a can or something on a package or frozen. And we are wasting food. We are throwing food away without the conscience, without thinking about. We just throw away. And I like to ask people, where is this place? Where is this generous way that we throw everything that we don't eat, use, consume, or dress? Where is this place that are getting all of those things from us? We have to think about stability and the preservation of the planet. And we can start by looking at our dustbins and our plates, our supermarket and grocery bags, to understand what we are doing as individuals.
And when you talked about nutrition and just, you're such a fila de Oshun, I just have to say that.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
And, I'm thinking about the work that you do for women. I would love for you to talk about that, because I think it is critical. And when you talk to me about femicide in Brazil and, and just some of the things that are going on there, and how you show up to empower women, to get them to prepare, nutritious meal, teach them how to prepare nutritious meals so they can, help their families. I would love for you to talk about that.
It's about empowering through food education. I like to call myself a food activist because it's a way where we can start by our houses, our body, our food. So when I go on those communities, on those marginalized places, and I sit and I listen to those women, I talk to them, I'm always trying to find the proper words. Because when we are food activists, we are almost like elitists, you know? Our narratives are so elitist because we are talking about a place of abundance, but we are getting into places that the abundance is different from ours. I have access to fresh food in my house, but I go into those places to talk about fresh food with people that cannot afford it. We are living the food insecurity on its major levels in Brazil. So people are eating so bad, or they are not eating. We have places where this level of food insecurity is the biggest one, where people, they eat now and they don't have any idea of when they are eating again. Those mothers, they have no idea of when they are putting something for their kids at the table. It's so cruel. It's so difficult to talk about food on those places because the balance is so injustice. We have inequities everywhere. But I keep on talking to them. And when I say do not throw food away, do not waste the shells, the roots, the seeds. If you see that a carrot is not on its standard, as we say at the market, as we say at the television, because they sell some standard of food, but the carrots are from the nature, and sometimes the carrots are not on that shape that we know. Sometimes it's different, it's bigger or not, it's rounded, but it's still a carrot. And in Brazil, we have the street markets all over the neighborhoods in all cities and the states. Every day we have a street market in our neighborhood. And if we go by the end, the salesmen, they are pushing the prices down. If the tomato was $5 the kilo by the morning at 8 or 9 a.m., if you go by the midday, it's like $1 the kilo. So I'm always talking to them, go on those hours and buy it cheaper. Do your own tomato sauce. Don't buy it from the industry. Do your own pasta. Do your own bread. So I'm working on social projects that teaches those people culinary techniques. We call it social gastronomy, because we need to give them all the knowledge, all the information, all the tools so they can prepare their own tomato sauce, their own pasta, their own breads and cakes. They don't have to buy it from the industry, because sometimes it looks like it's cheaper, but if we take a time to read the labels, we won't recognize more than the half of the words that are written there. All the acidulants, all the conservatives, and the numbers, the codes. Why are we eating things that we don't recognize as food, you know? If our grandmothers don't recognize those words as food, why are we still buying and eating those things that they call food and it's not? So my work with those communities, it goes on this way of action and advocacy and trying to empower them through education, through food education.
I love it. You inspire me, just FYI. I think you know that because I'm always, just like fangirling Paty Durães, and when I met you, I was like, oh, the light in me sees the light in you.
Yes.
So I'm so proud of all the work you're doing in Brazil.
Thank you so much.
And I know you are loved and in the community, and it was such an honor to, host a dinner at Carmel Cafe with Chef Dana Han and Christina Han and Amigos de Samba, and we danced all night. We danced samba all night, and our students love you, and we just thank you so much for being on Culture and Flavor. And we hope that, where can people follow your work? I know you have an Instagram page. Where can they follow your work?
Yes. Thank you so much, Zella. Thank you so much for the students that were there listening to me, because, when people are listening to you, it's so emotional. I'm always emotional when I see people paying attention to the things I'm trying to explain. And so thank you so much. And also to the girls that helped me on cooking. I hope they can keep on cooking the feijão and the moqueca at their houses to their family. Thank you to all the community in NOLA, the Carmel people. That night was extremely awesome. We were celebrating our existence, right?
Yes.
And the fact that we are together, that we now are like one. We are a unity. I see you. I see your light. I'm so proud of your work as well at the Dillard University. I am asking all the Orishas and God so we can keep on doing more and raising the bar and creating more content and more knowledge about all of it to them, and also to our people in Brazil. I hope you can come to Brazil to talk about how it is to run a program like that, because we don't have things like that in Brazil, It was so much love that I could see at the Ray Charles program. So we can keep on talking about those things on my Instagram, which is Patty, PATTY .DURAES, Patty.Durães at the Instagram. Thank you so much, Zella.
Thank you. Obrigada, minha amiga.
Obrigada, minha amiga.
Thank you all for listening to another episode of Culture and Flavor. Thanks for joining. Share with a friend. And we enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Paty.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Culture and Flavor is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org.
Hey everybody, I'm Nick Latham.
And I'm Leah Bottima.
And we're the hosts of Were You Raised by Wolves?
Each week we try to make the world a kinder, nicer place.
Well, that's the idea, at least.
I mean, we try.
Have you ever wondered what to do if you're ghosted?
Or what to do when a friend asks you to borrow money?
Or the proper way to eat Cheetos?
You know, the big questions.
So please find Were You Raised by Wolves wherever you listen.